When it comes to the Browns and the Raiders big bounce back here, win this game 20-16. We'll take a look at the Raiders. Top 5 graded players. Tyree Wilson at the top of the list. Good for Tyree, man. 82.7 overall grade this past week. Defensive tackle Christian Wilkins right behind him with a 78.6. Safety Isaiah Pola-Mao with a 78.2 overall grade as well, getting his first start. Running back Alexander Madison with a 75.8. And then tight end Harrison Bryant with a 75.7. Gardner Minshew with a 58.4 overall grade in this one. Flip to the other side for the Cleveland Browns. Linebacker Devin Bush with a 77.1, and then linebacker Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah with a 74.8. Running back Jerome Ford with a 74.8. Myles Garrett, one of his lower grades that you'll see from him, I feel like this season, 71.8, was bottled up pretty well. Wide receiver Jerry Jeudy with a 70.7, and then Deshaun Watson, the top graded player for the Cleveland Browns, at an 86.0 despite them losing this football game. Stat that told the story here, Dalton. What was it?
It was kind of hard to find one because this was a weird game. It was like,
I felt like this game went exactly the way that we thought it was going to be. Whoever ran the ball better was going to win.
Yeah,
and guess what? The team that ran the ball better won the game by 4 points.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah, and there was just a lot of this game where just like watching it, it was just like kind of like, because what was it? The Browns got ahead early. And then they gave it up, and then they got behind, and then it was a coming back. Or no, the Raiders got ahead early, didn't they?
I thought the Raiders got ahead early.
I watched a lot of these games this morning, so they all blend together when it's 6 a.m. But no, I mean it was weird, and I'm like,
no, you're right the first time.
I'm looking through it. I'm like, man, I don't feel like I'm getting a whole lot. You mentioned the run game too. I don't feel like I'm getting a whole lot out of this Browns defensive line that's supposed to be like their dominant unit, right? And Myles Garrett had 5 pressures and 2 sacks. He's always great because that's what he does. He was in that top 5. He's in that top 5 every week. The rest of the team though had 5 pressures altogether and no sacks. And you know, in their defensive line, if I isolate it to the run D for their D line, a 67.2 run D grade. But there's a heavy part of that that's inflated with Isaiah McGuire forcing that fumble that they scored on. They scooped and scored it. I take out that one play, and their D-line run D grade was a 55.6. Like you just mentioned, the Raiders ran the ball more. The Raiders were the more physical team in this game. And the Browns' defensive line, look, we already know they have a hard time scoring. And Watson was really good in this game, and they still have a hard time scoring.
Right.
They need this defensive line to be the best unit on the field. And Myles Garrett was great, and he always is, but they need the whole thing. It's not just one guy. And these are some of the concerns that, when I looked at them playing in road games last year, was a problem, that it didn't always travel. It didn't travel in this one. Their D-line wasn't great as a unit in this game.
I sort of hinted at it. This is what I said in the preview on Thursday. Whoever runs the ball better is going to win the game.
It's a good call.
And that's exactly what happened. And it's not like one was really great at running the ball, one was really terrible, but the Raiders were better at running the football. Raiders, 75.9 rushing grade, 153 rushing yards, 8 missed tackles forced, 3.7 yards after contact per attempt. Take that against the Browns. 67.3 rushing grade, 92 rushing yards, 5 missed tackles forced, and 3.4 yards after contact per attempt. They were just slightly better, and they were slightly better on the scoreboard because of it. And so it's sort of this is the stat that told the story, but it's also my most disappointing as well, because the Browns, that was sort of my most disappointing. You had the ability to win this game if you would have run the football a little bit better, but they just didn't. And that was, to me, always going to be the identity of this game. Deshaun Watson had his best game yet in 2024, which was a good sign for them, but it wasn't enough, because it feels like even with him playing better ball, you've got to be able to run the ball a lot better than what Cleveland's been doing over the last, I think, 4 weeks. And that showed up with them losing this football game that I think was absolutely winnable for them. And you were right the first time. Browns were up 10-0 in this game. And you have a little bit better of a run game, I think they come away with a win, and they just were not able to do so. But what about you? Most impressive, most disappointing? Who you got?
I got to go to just this Raiders pass rush as a unit. You had this weird dynamic in this game where the Browns were missing 3 and then for a stretch then 4 starters on their offensive line, but the Raiders were missing Max Crosby and Malcolm Kuntz is done for the year, who was really their number 2 pass rusher. So, look, credit to the entire unit. Okay, Tyree Wilson was their highest graded player.
Yep.
Raiders pass rush, 52.4 pass rush win rate. All right. Adam Butler on the inside, 7 pressures and a sack. Tyree Wilson, 5 pressures. Charles Snowden, 4 pressures and a sack. Christian Wilkins had 4 pressures. Kayvon Chason had multiple pressures, former first-round pick. This unit stepped up. Because there's a lot of times where okay, one, I was really worried when Malcolm Kuntz has now a season-ending injury, but now Max Crosby's out for a game, and anytime Max Crosby's out, you start to get worried. Okay, who's rushing the passer? Well,
right.
In this game, as a unit, they came together for as much as the Browns' pass rush did not, even with their star player in there. The Raiders found a way to get to Watson. Watson had a good game, but their D-line really put him under a lot of duress and made it so he at least didn't have time to beat them vertically. So, I thought big step up. You meant, again, Tyree Wilson developing into what he was supposed to be as the
they need it. They
need it in the worst way.
Yep.
I mean, just he's a guy, especially take him 7th overall, struggled a lot last year. He really did. And I know he's a project. He has a lot of physical skills. This is the type of game he specifically can build on. But, this Raiders team, they're always looking for pass rush depth. And you found it in this game. And if you can find it when Crosby is on the field, you still got a pretty good defense.
My most impressive, because I already talked about most disappointing, I just went back and forth with the run game, but Raiders safety Isaiah Pola-Mao, he was awesome. Getting his first start because Marcus Epps is out for the season, had a season-ending knee injury last week against Carolina, so Pola-Mao is stepping in, and I just loved what I saw from him, man. He had a really great performance. 57 defensive snaps. That was tied for the most on the team, so they leaned on him a lot. 6 tackles, 2 solo stops, 1 forced incompletion. He's the nephew of Troy Polamalu as well, for anybody out there that did not already know that. And he would just listening to how he was talking about getting ready for his first start and how excited he was and how well he was able to play. Him and Trayvon Merrick back there, because Merrick had a pick as well. He's having a really nice season. That's a really nice safety duo that they have back there, or at least certainly it was against the Browns. So wanted to shout out Pola-Mao as one of the top players in this game. He was one of the top 5 graded players in the game, and he had some of the biggest plays, including that pass breakup on a really good pass to Jerry Jeudy that could have changed everything that he was able to make a difference on. So loved him really being able to stand out in his first start. But what about you? What's your most disappointing before we move on?
This sounds kind of bad, but I'm going to do it. Any Cleveland Brown not named Deshaun Watson or Myles Garrett. This is a game you have to step up and find a way to win. And I know you got offensive line injuries, but this was an ugly game. I know the Raiders ran the ball well, but we keep hearing about, do the Browns have a top 10 roster? Do they have a top 5 roster? Do they have Deshaun Watson had, what was it, an 88 point something passing?
It was 86.0 overall grade. I can't remember what the
I think his passing grade was somewhere around an 88. This was Deshaun Watson, at least before the grading. I know it's not flashy stats. This was his best game as a Brown, and they found a way to lose it anyway. And I think they only scored 10 points on offense. They just need to be better than this. If Watson's going to play well and they're still going to lose games, I don't really know. I don't know what to tell him. And I know that, again, the offensive line injuries killed him in this game. The Raiders D-line won this game in the trenches. This is a game I actually thought the Browns would go in and win this game with with Crosby out,
right,
and with the Raiders coming into this week, I believe being last in the NFL in rushing.
Yes,
that's kind of disturbing that they still found a way. To me, it's disturbing that they found a way to lose this game for all of the talent that we keep saying and hearing. Oh, the Browns have all this talent, and they're supposed to make the playoffs, and they're just. Now you go, this is a week. Now we've seen a week where the quarterback was functional and the rest of the team wasn't. That's a problem.
That's the toughest part for the Browns, is that you've just been begging Deshaun Watson to be good, and he was, and it still was not good enough for this team. They are constantly, the Browns are just constantly this year going to be that team that always plays their level of competition. Right. I mean, it was a multi-score game against the Cowboys in week 1, but then 1-score game against the Jags, 1-score game against the Giants, 1-score game against the Raiders. Now, they got the Commanders next, and if they can keep up with the Commanders, I think that'll tell us that this can be a competitive team throughout the year. But if they get blown out by the Commanders, then all of a sudden we go, oh, okay, you did not fare well against the Cowboys in week 1.
Do we have any reason to think the Browns would beat them the way Washington's playing?
No. But I'm saying competitive. Like if you keep it a 1-score game, then we can still sort of believe in the Browns a little bit and Kevin Stefanski, how he's going to have this team prepared. But if you lose to the Commanders, all of a sudden the picture of the season gets very different. Because if it's close against the Commanders, you could just say they're not going to blow anybody out at any point in time. They're also not going to get blown out at any point in time. So you could have a little bit of faith that they're always going to be in every single game. But if they lose by double digits or 2 scores or more to the Commanders, well, all of a sudden you lost by 16 to the Cowboys then. You'd lose to whatever you lost to with the Commanders coming up. And then you go, all right, we got lost to the Giants. We got lost to the Raiders. And our only win is against the Jags. So, I don't know. Yeah, I think next week's a big telling week for what the type of team the Cleveland Browns are going to be.
That's fair.